Hello everybody, Brian Goulet here of GouletPens.com, and it's episode number 216 of Goulet Q&A, and I remembered to turn on the audio this time. I hit the button twice. I goofed that up last time. You know, you would think after 200 and some of these videos that I would finally have figured out how to do it right, but you know, sometimes you just gotta work with what you got. As my dad used to say, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken poo. Except he used a different word than poo. Anyway, so let's talk about what's happened. Let's see here. I've had a pretty good family week the last week. Went bowling this weekend with my kids for the first time in like 2 years because we just don't bowl a lot. But took them. They had a blast, and I got a tip. I don't know if any of you are avid bowlers out there, but I've been bowling wrong my whole life. Basically, I was trying to use a light ball and chuck it as hard as I possibly could, just using sheer force of will to get that ball down there, and that's a completely wrong method. You're supposed to use a heavy ball, because apparently a heavy ball gets more pin action, as I was told from the manager of said bowling alley. And I tried it, and I got 5 strikes in one game, which has never happened to me. It was kind of crazy. So I bowled the highest score of my life, 180. Now that was with bumpers, of course, because I was with my kids, so I feel like my score is not completely legit, but still, I've never even approached that score before. So that was kind of cool feeling. I don't know, and you get a bunch of strikes, and I got 1 turkey, and it was like, heck yeah, man, that's cool. Anyway, that's just kind of a fun little personal anecdote. We got 4th of July that's coming up next week. We are going to be closed. Goulet Pens office is going to be closed on the actual 4th of July, celebrating the birth of our nation. So we'll be open Monday, Tuesday, closed Wednesday, open Thursday, Friday. It's a little weird having the holiday right in the middle of the week, but you know, it is what it is. We don't really get to choose what day it is, so that'll be happening. Just a little heads up for you. Let's see here, what else? Oh, we are looking for a director of marketing. So if you know anybody who's in the marketing business, like has some pretty good marketing experience, like has managed a creative team, has kind of done what you see going on around here. If you have that experience yourself, or you know anybody who's kind of in that space, I'm basically looking for somebody to be kind of my right-hand person on the marketing side of things. Now, I've got a great media team. They freaking kick butt, and they really know what they're doing in terms of creating content. I'm looking for somebody who's up in the kind of more strategy stratosphere. So somebody who's dealing with, some ad strategy type stuff. There's a lot of complexity now with like Facebook and email and all that kind of stuff. And then somebody to help, oversee. I have a media manager, Margaret. She does a great job with like the day-to-day stuff, but she kind of needs more hands-on help than what I'm able to provide because I'm covering kind of the whole company. So I'm really looking for somebody in that kind of spot. So got an open position right now. If you head over to the Join Our Team page on Goulet Pens, you can check that out. But anyway, that's out there. Let's talk about some pens, shall we? So the Aurora 88 Urano, we had a bunch of people that had signed up to get an emailed about that, and we got like, I'm not joking, so few of them that I am going to stop talking about it because I don't want to hype it up at all, because basically I'm just explaining to apologize. Like, we ordered a ton and we got like not even 1/10 of what we ordered. So when that happens, it's kind of like, all right, forget it. So that happens sometimes, especially with some of these special edition, limited edition kind of things. And anyway, that happens. So if you are really hot on getting one of those pens, get it anywhere you can, because there just aren't that many of them. And then a couple other things. So we launched a couple of Jinhao pens this week, the Epic Dragon and the Shell pen. I think I showed both of these last week, or maybe I showed them right now. I can't remember what I've showed where at this point. I know I showed them on Instagram Live. I got a lot of irons in the fire right now, but anyway, sweet pens. I think we have sold through them all this week. We've got more on order, but we got to get them from China, so it kind of takes a little while. The Dragon, I get to bug Rachel about that because she thinks it's like the most hideous pen in the world and did not want to carry them, and so I did not even have to say anything. Like the day after we launched them, like almost all of them were gone, and Rachel just comes in and she's like, "You're right." I never even said anything. I was like, I'm not even going to say I told you so. But anyway, it's a pretty sweet pen. I like it anyway. Let's see here. We launched a new ink line, QOTW. So it's a bunch of new inks there. I forget the exact number, 13, 14. No, maybe it's more than that. I can't remember. Somewhere in that line. We got like several different ink brands at one time. should really study up my facts before I turn on the video camera. But anyway, it's a new line of like very traditional kind of Japanese inks. I have a couple that I've been using, and they're very easy to clean, pretty decent shaders, no wild properties, no crazy sheens or shimmers or any of that stuff. Not waterproof or anything. Just kind of conventional fountain pen ink, which maybe is a nice break from some of the crazy stuff we've been coming out with. So anyway, it's a newer brand that new to us anyway. That I don't think is widely known about. So if you're interested in that, check it out. It's kind of more of a premium brand. It's, from what I understand, it's made with some more like traditional techniques. What those are exactly, I don't know because they're like proprietary. So, but anyway, it's kind of interest. Also launched Retro 51 roller balls. So these are ones that we've been talking about for some time. And we are, interested in kind of expanding with Retro 51. We're going to be developing some custom stuff in the future with them, and we are going to basically kind of do like a soft launch with these roller balls. So we're carrying just kind of the nothing crazy, nothing special, just the regularly offered things. Not their whole line, but we're starting with some. So you can check those out on our site, and we will be, carrying those at first, and then we'll start to come out with some new stuff. We'll start to carry their poppers. We'll, get more into it as you all become more familiar with the brand. But it's the first roller ball that we've had in a long time. So we're kind of dipping our toes back in the water there. I'm really not looking to expand drastically into roller balls, but from what I understand from a lot of people in the fountain pen community is like Retro 51 is kind of like one of the more fountain pen user appreciated roller balls that's out there. So, and they got some really cool designs and stuff like that. So, and their design is really great. The process so far of us coming up with custom stuff has been pretty cool. It takes like months for this stuff to happen, but the first one that we're going to come out with is it's going to be epic. I don't want to oversell it, but it's going to be amazing. We got the Visconti Homo sapiens bronze swirl in, which looks so good. I mean, I'm normally not into like ivory colored pens, but this one just looks so creamy. It looks really good. It's very expensive. I will just be the first to admit it's very pricey. Is it worth the leap up from like a Homo sapiens lava pen, which is my daily carry? I love that pen. That's going to be a matter of personal choice. It's not going to be that way for everybody, but it is a really gorgeous pen, and the swirls on it are more tightly packed and more intense than it has been on some of the previous limited editions they've done on some of the Homo sapiens. So it's pretty cool, and it's got an ivory feed, which they haven't done on a lot of pens. So it's pretty cool. It's worth checking out. We launched Colodex, so if you're familiar with the color ring, anybody that likes to do ink swabs and stuff like that, this is basically the same card that's stamped out to be put into a Rolodex. Now, we don't sell Rolodexes here, but you can find them at pretty much any office supply store and, your friendly neighborhood internet. But we don't have them, so I apologize about that. I don't have a source for Rolodexes, and I just couldn't even wrap my head around it. So if that's something you're like dying to get, comment, and we'll see about that. But we're just dipping our toes in the water with the Colodex cards anyway. And then Opus 88, we have Fantasia, which is a whole new style of pen, very colorful, smaller, kind of almost like mini pocket pen size. Really interesting kind of pen. I don't have one to show you. They were supposed to be delivered to me on Wednesday here when I'm recording this, but it got pushed off until Thursday. So we may have them listed on our site by the time this video goes out, but I don't have it to show you here today. Otherwise, I would play with it and show you because it seems pretty cool. But anyway, that's coming. I'm sure I'll talk about it next week. And then we're getting the Opus 88 Picnic, which is like this guy here. We're getting this in purple, so that's coming as well. This is the brown one. This is not purple. So that's coming. Field Notes 3 Missions. So that's Field Notes' new seasonal one, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. So that one is pretty interesting because it comes in a 3-pack, and then it has these like fold-out card things. I don't have the set with me here to show you, but you fold it out and it makes like little moon, space shuttle, whatever, capsule, not time capsule, space capsule, little fold out thing. What is I'm just completely failing on my words. Oh, whatever. Okay, but it makes a little thing, little trinket. Okay. Another brand that we're going to be picking up soon is Diplomat. So I know we've been getting asked about Diplomat for some time, and where is my Diplomat? I have a couple of them, and I where is it? Let's see here. So we're going to be carrying Diplomat. We have a couple different pens with them that we're going to carry. We're going to pick up the Arrow. We're going to pick up the Excellence A2. Let's see, here's the Arrow. So it's a kind of a distinctive looking pen. This is the orange one. Boom. So we're going to carry these. Boom. So they have Jovo nibs, nice writers, made in Germany, precision engineered, really solid pens. Just the fit and finish on these is fantastic. So we're going to have that one, the Magnum, and then the Traveler as well. So 4 different models, some different colors and nibs and stuff like that. And that it's going to be here relatively soon, maybe in the next few weeks. I don't know exactly when they're going to be coming. They actually just changed distributorship. And so we're kind of establishing a relationship with a new distributor and getting some pens and stuff like that. So it might take a little bit to get some things in motion, but I did want to just give you a heads up that that's going to be coming. If you had Diplomat on your radar at all, I'm sure I'll be talking about that more. But just like the capping motion on this is just like, it's like so crisp. Anyway, let's see here, what else? Pelican is coming out with their M815 striped pen, and that one is going to be coming soonish. I don't have an exact date for that, but I believe it's going to be in the near future, in the next couple of weeks probably. So have that on your radar. I'm eager to see what that one is like because yeah, it looks pretty cool. And then the Peniter Honeycomb, which is a really interesting pen. I actually got a few of them in-house, not enough to actually do a full launch. We're waiting for our next batch to come in and then we can launch it, but I have seen the final version. The one that I saw before was a prototype, and it wasn't as like highly polished as this one. These ones are like super crisp, super clear. I like it really good. We got new pictures up on our site, so if you had checked it out before and you want to check it out now with like the final version, I think it looks even better. And they're actually including a leather pen case with the pen too. So, and now I'm realizing just in this moment, I totally could have grabbed one and shown you, but I'm already in it on this video, and I'll show it to you later. And then some new Jeroboam inks. I did find out that there's the 5 new inks that they're adding to the regular series. That is going to be coming out in like mid-July. So it's going to be a few weeks yet. And then we have the new 1798 color. It's like a nice orange, almost like a copper orange color. I showed it in Right Now on Wednesday. You can check that out too. That will be here probably around the same time frame. I don't know exactly as that, but it might be a couple weeks. And then the Visconti Homo sapiens Evolution. That one's going to be in the mix here soon. That's going to have a new skeleton nib, which is kind of interesting. It's like a tubular nib, sort of, that has these cutouts that make it look kind of skeleton-like and kind of funky. Very interesting. So that'll be their, what do they call it? Their chromium nib. You know, essentially like it's like a steel nib. It's their tubular, but really interesting pen. And I hope to have that. I've seen the sample of it, but I don't, again, have it to show. I just don't have a lot to show you here today. A lot to talk about, not a lot to show. All words and no action. What can I say? That's what you're getting in Q&A today. That rhymed. Did not mean for that to happen. Okay, let's talk about pen and writing questions, shall we? I have 9 total questions for you today, and some of them are rather compact, meaning there's a lot of content within a little question. Not compact as in I'm going to be short, because conciseness is not my gift, clearly. So let's get into it, shall we? All right, so this is from It's Mostly Pictures of My Dog on Instagram, which is one of the best handles that I've ever seen. I'd never given much attention to the Pilot Stargazer until Rachel said it was basically a prera with a gold nib and a metal body. But at that point, I knew that I had to have it. Are there any other, if you liked blank, this is just like an upgraded version of that you know of? Seems like it would be great for people looking for their first next level pens. I get asked about next level stuff a lot. In fact, my next question is also a next level question. That's interesting. So the Stargazer, first of all, is being discontinued. So if you really like a Stargazer, try to pick it up soon because they're not going to be around much longer. So at least in the US, I'm not sure if they're like stopped making them. They're just not going to in the US. I don't know exactly, but either way, it's going to be harder to get them. So that is kind of true. You know, it's got a gold nib, and so there's a bit more of a kind of an upgrade that happens than just like a different body and same nib and everything. So I kind of put a list together. It was kind of too many pens for me to grab, so I'm just going to kind of list them out. And hopefully, if you're interested, I'll maybe go slow, and we'll have maybe some context in either the YouTube description or in our blog post that lists them all out. So if you want to reference them, that would be the way to do it. But here we go. So I am a huge fan of the Lamy 14 karat gold nibs. I think they write phenomenally. There are some very, very close next level upgrades you can do on the Studio and the Accent, even the CP1. There's certain pens that come with steel nibs on some of the colors, some of the versions, and then others, the more premium version, comes with the gold nib. So very similar styles, almost exact same pen, but the pen is maybe a little fancier and it comes with the gold nib in those particular models. So that right there is a great upgrade. Or you could buy just a 14 karat gold spare nib, which we have available sometimes, not always, but there was a time when we did not have it available at all. Now we have some spares. So that you can just take that and put that on whatever Lamy steel nib pen you have. You can put it on Lamy ABC if you really want to, or a Nex, or something like that. And you can have an immediate upgrade with the exact same body of pen. So that's one option for you. You can kind of do something similar with Edison. So with Edison, you can get a gold nib upgrade. You can just literally swap the housing right out of there and you can put in a gold nib on the same pen. So that can upgrade your writing experience. It's a big jump in price to do that. It's almost doubling the price of the pen, but it definitely, I like the writing experience it gets. Do you have to get that gold nib? No, it's not necessarily for everybody. It writes wetter, it's definitely got some spring to it, and it's very, very smooth. Smoother than the steel nibs, which the steel nibs are already pretty smooth, just with a little bit of a hint of feedback. But if you really want kind of that primo experience, you can get a gold nib for those. TWSBI, I think if you have a TWSBI Eco, which is kind of their starter pen, you can upgrade to like a 580 or a mini or something like that. The TWSBI Go actually was just announced a couple days ago. So if you have not yet seen the TWSBI Go, check that out. They put out a short video. It's even, it's even more of an entry-level pen. It'll be a sub $20 TWSBI pen that is a piston filler. And it seems pretty darn cool. So I haven't seen one in person yet, but I've seen their video and it looks pretty neat. So check out TWSBI on Instagram, or I'm sure on their Facebook page, on their website and all that. They probably have TWSBI Go out there. So I literally, I mean, I was kind of alluded to that they were working on something like this, but I experienced it brand new just like you all did a couple days ago. So go check that one out. So again, if you get something like a TWSBI Go or maybe an Eco, you can upgrade to a 580 mini, whatever, back. And you can have an upgrade there. Kind of going into the Pilot family here. The Pilot Metropolitan, if you go up to maybe a Prera, same nib on those, and maybe you would consider it an upgrade, maybe not, because you're going from like a harder metal to a plastic, you know, which that may not be your thing. But, you know, price-wise, it's an upgrade, and there's some other aspects to it that you may like better than what's on the Metropolitan. So that could be an upgrade for you, or if you really want to kind of lump those two together, it's like okay, the Metropolitan and the Prera, they're kind of on the same level. If you really want to take a jump up from there, I like the Pilot Custom 74. Stylistically, it's a little bit different pen, but you know, overall grip size and all that kind of stuff is kind of similar to the Prera, and I like the Pilot Custom 74. It was one of the first gold nib pens that I ever used, first gold nib pen I ever owned, and I'm a huge fan of it. It writes really, really well, so I like that one. Of course, you can consider like a Vanishing Point or, you know, E95S or something else kind of in that similar price range, but I think like the Metro to the Prera going up to the Custom 74 is kind of like more in line with each other maybe. You know, so this one is a bit unorthodox, but Opus 88, which is a newer brand that we have, and we're out of stock of a lot of it because it's been more popular than we expected even. But these have Jowo nibs on them. And so kind of keeping in line with a Jowo nib, but maybe if you want to upgrade the body, you can get an Edison pen, which, you know, depending on which Opus 88 you get, these, a lot of them, the Picnic, the Coloro, they have number 5 nibs, and you can get an Edison, the Pearlette has a number 5 nib, and then some of the other custom Edisons like the Mina and stuff like that have number 5 nibs as well, but a lot of the Edisons that we carry are number 6 nibs, so that would be a bit of an upgrade. I like the number 6 nibs a little better. I feel like the number 5s are really, really stiff because they're smaller nibs, they're a little shorter. And I don't know, I like the size of the number 6 nib. It just hits me in the right way. So that could be it. And then, you know, the bodies of the Opus 88 pens are really nice, but there's just not as much depth to the material because they're like injection molded, right? They're not cast resin like you have with the Edison ones. So the Edison, because it's cast resin, they're actually individually turned, which you get so much more depth of the material and stuff, and just visually, it's a very attractive style of pen. So you could consider that to be an upgrade. I would, but it's pretty cool. And also, Edison, you can use cartridge converter, but you can also convert it to an eyedropper, and these are eyedropper pens, so that's kind of like why I'm putting them on the same plane. So you could consider that an upgrade. Let's go with a little bit of flex here. So a Noodler's Nib Creeper, or maybe an Ahab, but Ahab is really kind of a different pen. So I'd consider like a Nib Creeper going up to maybe a Pilot Falcon. Yes, a Pilot Falcon is a soft nib. It's not technically flex, but I think you can get sort of a similar line variation to that as you can with the Nib Creeper. You can probably get a little more drastic line variation with a Nib Creeper, but as far as fit and finish of the pen, not having the pen smell, the Falcon is an upgrade, and I'm a big fan of that pen, so that's really nice. And the size overall is kind of more similar between those two pens than say like the Ahab up to the Falcon or something like that. Platinum Cool, an upgrade from that, or the Cool or the Balance, that's kind of a lower end Platinum, can go up to PTL 5000A. That's the most affordable gold nib pen that we have. It's under $70. And then you could kind of upgrade from there if you like the PTL 5000A and the gold nib and you want a nicer body. You can go with the Platinum Kanazawa Leaf Maki-A, so you can get fancier designs and stuff like that. Kind of a similar writing experience. And then if you really want to take it up a notch, you can go with an even nicer Maki-A. Platinum has some Maki-A, or you can go to Namiki, maybe a Nippon Art, or a Yukari. You can pretty much go as high up as you want to go once you start getting into Maki-A, but you can kind of go the full spectrum there. So I gave you a nice little ladder to climb there. And then just a couple more for you here. So Platinum Preppy, if you like the way that the Preppy writes and you just want to sturdy your body, you can go up to the Plaisir. Okay, it's not a stratospheric jump. You're still looking like $4 or $5 for a Preppy, up to like $20 for a Plaisir. But overall writing experience is going to be similar. You can use the same converters and cartridges between the two, but the Plaisir is a metal body, a little more durable. And then let's talk about vacuum. So TWSBI, the VAC 700R, or maybe the VAC Mini or something like that. If you wanted to kind of upgrade, you can go to the Pilot Custom 823. Now again, it's quite a jump in price there, but you are going to a gold nib. Of course, TWSBI's got a really good reputation, especially for the VAC pens. So it's not like, a far lesser product, but the Pilot Custom 823 has got a phenomenal reputation. It's a favorite among many. So you could definitely consider that to be an upgrade. And then if you want Visconti Rembrandt, so I'm going with a magnetic cap, nice kind of pattern to it, very kind of artistic, Italian pen. Visconti Rembrandt, or maybe the Van Gogh, but I would consider the Rembrandt to be kind of the lower. It's the most entry-level Visconti that we've ever had. And then maybe a step up from there could be the Peniter La Grande Bellezza. That also a magnetic cap, kind of somewhat has a similar overall kind of shape to the Rembrandt a little bit, but you're going up to a gold nib, and the material itself is going to be a little more interesting, just because it's got some marble dust kind of infused into the resin there, yeah, just some interesting things going on there. So hopefully somewhere in that mess of pens that I just gave you, again, it'll probably help if you write all that down into a list so you can reference the blog at a minimum to check that out. All right, WMP21 on Instagram says, what's a next level stub nib? There are all sorts of talk about 14 karat gold nibs for extra fine and fine, but beyond starter stubs from pens like TWSBI or Monteverde, I don't hear too much about better stubs. Thank you. Okay, yeah, there just aren't as many gold stubs available. Steel stubs are actually pretty great, and I'm a big fan of them. I think that they're a really good value, and they write actually surprisingly well for what they are. That said, in order to level up from there, you pretty much need to go gold, because most of the steel stub nibs that you're going to see are just untipped. And I didn't even know if you realize that mostly, but because you got so much surface area there, they don't tip, put like a harder tipping material on most stub steel nibs. Now, some do, but not most. And so really to get an upgrade, you need to go up to gold, and then pretty much every gold nib is gonna be tipped, because gold is softer than steel. Steel is it's not gonna last as long as a tip nib would, but it's still, I've been doing this 9 years and I haven't yet worn out or heard of someone wearing through their steel stub nib. It certainly can happen, but I haven't heard about that really being an issue. And there's a lot of them out there. So if you want to kind of level up, you know, the Pilot Vanishing Point stub is a really good riding stub nib, and it's relatively affordable for kind of that next level stub. You can get a similar stub on the Pilot Custom 912 if you don't like the click of the Vanishing Point, but you want a similar riding experience. I find the stub on that to be comparable, which makes sense because it's both Pilots, so they kind of grind them the same. Platinum with their 3776, now they call it the music nib, and it's a 3-tined nib, but it's essentially a kind of a wide stub. And it's, you know, that one's kind of interesting. Both Pilot and Platinum, to really get the maximum kind of stubbiness of the pen, you really got to hold it at a pretty steep angle. That's kind of more the way they write in Japan, is with the pen kind of more vertically. Not like we do in the Western style, which is to like hold it at a relatively lower angle. But if you hold that thing at a higher angle, you can get some good variation there. Very wet writing pen. Pineider's La Grande Bellezza, so there's a nice stub on that. I'm a fan of that. I almost chose the stub for myself on that one, but I went with the broad because it's a little bit stub-like. And I've kind of been getting more into broads lately. A lot of the pens I've acquired recently have been broads, like my, you know, Coloro Demonstrator, and got a broad on that one. I don't know, I'm just into the broads. And then Visconti's Dream Touch stub is really nice. They grind them a little smooth. So we've had a couple of years ago, we had more of an issue with them skipping and stuff like that because they were actually over polishing, but I think maybe they're learning from that, and I haven't heard of that being as much of an issue recently. So big fan of their stub nibs. Aurora has actually a nice stub and an italic. So Aurora is one of the few companies I know that offers both. Not on every pen, and it's actually not on that many pens, and they charge a pretty significant upgrade in order to do it. So we don't have it available on any pens currently, but I know that they're around, and there may be some sellers that have some of their stubs and italics available for you. And then Pelikan Souvrons, you know, the M400 on up. The M200 is fine, but it's a steel stub, and it's not worlds better than you know, what you would get on a, you know, kind of your typical stub. But their gold stubs are really pretty great. So I've never been a huge fan of the really bigger ones, especially on Pelikan, like the 1.5s, but the 1.1s are pretty good. All right, Martha on Facebook says, what makes a gold nib pen the same price as a steel nib pen? Is there really a huge difference in the bodies of the steel nib high-priced pens to warrant $120 plus prices? Are the steel nib pens better constructed than a similarly priced gold nib pen? Just wondering why we see gold nibbed and steel nib pens having the same price. It's a great question, you know, and the short answer is it varies, right? Like, there's a lot of factors that go into the pricing of a pen, especially when you're talking about buying something maybe online. You're sourcing out things from all over the world. So just looking strictly at the pens, it could be a matter of the quality of the pen, like the build quality, the rarity of the materials used, the manufacturer's kind of costs and prices, and just the way they have their business structured. There's a lot of factors involved there. If you look across brands, you know, there could be some, you know, cheaper gold nib pens. I'm thinking specifically like the Platinum PTL 5000A. They sell it for under $70, but there's plenty of steel nib pens that are in the $100 plus range. So is it that the PTL 5000A is a junk pen, but it just has a gold nib? No, it's actually a pretty decent pen, but it's a very, very thin, smaller pen. The nib itself is smaller. And, you know, I don't know their pricing structure, but I imagine they're not making gobs of money on a PTL 5000A. It might be like more of an introductory pen. They're trying to get their name out there to attract attention to maybe some of their other pens. So there could be some kind of pricing strategy involved, loss leader type of thing. I don't know that for a fact with platinum necessarily, but that could be a reason why sometimes there are cheaper prices on kind of some of those lower end ones. You know, you might see some like cheaper gold, I'll say cheaper, like Platinum, Pilot, Lamy, all that kind of overlap into a lot of the kind of nicer steel pens. You know, if you get into the $140, $150, $160 range, that's when you'll start to see a lot more kind of those entry-level gold nib pens. And then you'll see some of the higher end steel nib pens. A lot of times you see them either from kind of luxury brands like Visconti or Montegrappa, you know, these higher end ones, or like ones that come from more kind of small custom shops like Edison, and you'll see those steel nibs will typically be a little higher price than what you would see in like more of a mass produced kind of scenario. It's rare to see gold nib pens of a single brand. Like if you're just looking at one brand, it's rare to see gold nib pens that will be lower in price than steel nib pens. Now there may be some exceptions there, particularly if they offer both, you know. You might get some pens that in a really nice material finish that's kind of rare, they might offer a steel and gold nib. And then in some other more simpler version, there might be a steel and gold nib, and maybe the gold nib will be kind of near the steel. But typically, within one brand, you'll see steel nibs being all kind of on the lower end, and then gold nibs kind of from there on out will pick up and go. Usually when you're seeing gold and steel nib prices overlapping, you're looking across brands. That's where things come into play. Like, for example, if you have a country of origin where, you know, there's a higher cost of manufacturing, and there's certain like economic tariffs or taxes, or the shipping is much more expensive, or there's all kinds of various factors that come into play, you know, whether we're buying something direct or whether there's like a distribution relationship set up with you know, different margins built in and stuff like that. So that stuff all kind of comes into play across various pens, various brands, and all that kind of stuff. You know, that could all affect things. Currency conversion rates, and you know, all this kind of stuff. And you know, these days it's like every week I'm reading something in the newspaper. It's like, okay, like, you know, this country's put this tariff, and you know, that country is doing something else, and now there's like this whole state tax thing that the Supreme Court just ruled on. It's like, what is this going to mean now? You know, so there's all kinds of just fluidity going on with this different kind of stuff. So all of that kind of comes into play with pricing, but you know, that's pretty much what I have to say about that. I wish I had like a more straightforward answer for you, but the truth of the matter is there's some general guidelines, but there could be all kinds of reasons why stuff starts to overlap. And the bottom line about it all is you just got to determine what factors are important in a pen to you, and then you determine, is it a fair price for what you want, and then you pull the trigger on it. And that's about it. All right, Dennis K on Facebook asks, Western pens tend to have a wider nib while Japanese are the opposite. Then should we match inks like this? Western pens use Western inks and Japanese pens use Japanese inks. This is an interesting question. I don't know that I've ever been asked this question, at least in this way. So I would say that it's not a bad idea. You know, a lot of pen companies will recommend using their ink for their pens. It seems very logical. I'm sure that's how they test their pens, is with the inks that they also manufacture. But it's not necessarily, at least in my experience, it's not going to be as drastic of a difference as what you see with nibs, because nibs, they are grinding them and physically changing them to be finer. And you can take out calipers, you can measure it, you can write on the page and see that it's finer. With ink, it's not like all Japanese writing ink is drier or anything like that. It's first off, I don't have a one scientific way to kind of measure any of these things and tell you like, oh yeah, Japanese inks are all this and Western inks are all this. It's much less cloudy, much much more cloudier in terms of their performance and stuff like that. And so you have to kind of test a whole bunch. And I've tried a whole bunch of all different brands, and I just haven't found anything that consistent within kind of the countries of origin and ink properties. It's even within one brand, there's seldom one brand where all of the ink has one kind of common property. Oftentimes you get different dyes that have different chemical components to them, and they'll behave differently, even mixed in different ratios and things like that on the page in terms of like dry time and bleed through and stuff like that. There's just so many factors involved with the different inks and different dyes and stuff like that that it's not nearly as straightforward as like just grinding a tip on a nib size a little bit finer, and then that affects the performance of every ink you put through the pen. Ink it's kind of a little more all over the place. So in my experience, it hasn't been where there's any particular benefit to matching up Japanese pen to Japanese ink and Western pen and Western ink, other than if you want to try to keep with the tradition of it, or if you use a Pilot pen and you want to use Pilot Iroshizuku ink and you want to keep with that and keep with the aesthetic and keep, that would be more the reason to do it than it would be that the performance of the ink on the page more matches the Japanese, desire or something like that. At least in my opinion and experience, but somebody else feels differently. Yeah, I'm open to hearing about your experience. All right, Sabrina S on Facebook asks, can you discuss the Opus 88 pens in more detail? Are there major differences between the Coloro and Picnic, or is it only the design that differs? I'm also interested in how the shutoff valve works. I'm a visual learner, so a demo would be helpful. I will literally demo with a demonstrator. Okay. So Opus 88. So I actually have some pens to show you here. I have the 3 different models that we currently have. Again, Fantasia will get added into the mix, but I don't have one of those to show you right now, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to leave that one out. But it's a little smaller one and it's more different, and I'll talk about that when I have it next week. Anyway, so let's talk about the 2 that are a little more similar. So I have the Coloro here and the Picnic. So the Coloro is a combination of resin and ebonite, and you can see it's got kind of a variegated pattern like this. And then the Picnic is all resin. But other than that, a lot of it's very similar. You get the rounded top, of course, on the Picnic. The Coloro is more of a flat top, not completely flat. It's got a little roundedness to it and a little bit of a point here on the back finial, but more or less, the overall shape and size is going to be fairly similar, with the exception of those finials there. The feel of the resin is very similar on both pens. Of course, the ebonite's going to feel a little bit different. But when you're holding the pens in your hand, the grip section is identical. So actually holding them in your hand and writing with them, the pens feel exactly the same. And then the nibs themselves, it's the same number 5 Yovo nibs they use on both pens. So using the same nib size on each pen, it's going to write exactly the same. And then the filling mechanism is exactly the same on both pens. So really, it's largely just an aesthetic difference between the 2 pens. They're the same price and everything too. So, it's just a matter of which ones you like more. So I'm going to show you how the mechanism actually works here in a second. But I'll add into the mix. So this one, we are calling it on our website the Opus 88 demonstrator, because technically the name is the Coloro demonstrator, but this pen is much more different in size and some other features that I'm going to point out in a second than these 2 even. But yet it was called the Coloro, the demonstrator. People were getting confused, so we just dropped the Coloro and we're calling this the demonstrator. But just know that this is called the Coloro demonstrator. So this one uses I'll compare it to the regular Coloro, just so you have a nice basis of comparison here. So obviously it's clear, it's a demonstrator, but it has like kind of a super clear and then like a frosted kind of aspect to it. So the barrel's really clear, and then it's kind of frosted at the threads. So it's very kind of interesting. This one does not post, so that's kind of the first thing. It like wants to kind of seat in there, but it does not actually stay on. The other ones will post. So if you are an avid pen poster, the demonstrator is not going to be a pen for you. And then this one has a number 6 nib, which you can see is much bigger here. Let's see if I can get you close up. You can see the difference in physical size between those two nibs. Now they're going to write somewhat similarly. You know, these are JoWo nibs, so if you like the way Goulet nibs and Edison nibs feel, then the JoWo ones on here are going to feel very, very similar. There may be some slight tweaks that they do slightly different than us, but largely the nibs are going to feel very similar. So that's kind of cool. So I like the number 6s, just, I don't know, it strikes me right. And then the filling mechanism on all 3 of these is exactly the same. And I have this one, it's inked up though, but it's the clear one. I hope it can show okay. But I'll try to show you how this actually works and see if I can get in here close enough for you to see what's going on. So it looks almost like it's a piston pen because it's got this rod in here, it's got threads with this knob you turn in the back, but it's actually an eyedropper. Most of the time when you have eyedropper pens, there's no mechanism inside. It's just an empty cavity of ink. But the interesting thing about these pens is it has this plunger so that it plugs up the back of the feed. The reason it does that is because when you have a really large volume of ink, the ink becomes relatively unstable in terms of its capillary action. So there's an air-ink interchange that happens inside the pen. You know, there's ink that flows down through, and there's air that travels up the pen, so it can allow air to displace the ink in the same you know, speed as it flows out of the pen. Essentially, think of a fountain pen as a controlled leak. So that interchange needs to happen in order for it to write. Well, if you have a huge body of ink up here with a lot of air, and then you get heat from your hand, or maybe the environment can be a factor, that can create instability and cause blobbing to happen while you're writing with the pen. Or it can cause ink to leak out of the cap, or what have you. So that is a possibility that happens, and that's why you hear a lot of eyedropper pens, people talk about them leaking or whatever. That can happen just because of the nature of having a larger volume of ink. It becomes less stable. So one way to kind of combat that is to put a plunger on it. And so that's what they've done here. You see this a lot on vacuum filling pens too, because those usually have a similarly large ink capacity, and most of the time those will plug up the back here too. So what that means is, you know, you can write with it for a little bit. There's a little bit of ink inside the grip. There's a little bit of ink in this kind of like this little pocket in here. You know, it's like this ink window, and it's got this little cavity in there. So it's kind of like a little reservoir. And I'll show you. Let me see if I can just take this off. I'll show you that little reservoir. So, you know, it's inked up, but ooh, it's gonna want to focus on my face. So there you go. So you can see there that, you know, it's kind of concave in there, or, you know, it's like a cone shape on the inside, and then it's got like a little tube in here where the ink kind of sits in there, and then that little contour right there, that's what mates up to the end of that rubber stopper. And you can see with a piston pen, that seal would actually go all the way to the outer walls of the ink reservoir, and that would create suction when you draw it up into the pen, and then it would not be blocking off this section right here. But eyedropper and this eyedropper, and then vacuum filling pens, they will actually have that rubber stopper mate up to here. So while I have it closed like this with the stopper all the way down, it is actually not having any of the ink from this reservoir here going down to the pen. So what that means is, as I write with this pen for a bit, I'm going to deplete the ink that's out of this little reservoir behind the feed, and the pen's going to run dry. Unless I take and I open up this reservoir, the big one, and I allow the ink to flow down through. Okay, so you just open that up a little bit. If you're going to be writing for a long writing session, you can just leave it open and write with it, and then it's just going to allow the ink to flow down through as it normally would. If you are more right on the go, like I am, then what you can do is you can allow that to flow down through. You can close it up, so you've gotten your ink kind of in that little reservoir that's not in the main body of the pen, and you can then seal it back up. So I've used the clear one to show you that, but all 3 of these pens have that exact same mechanism in here, and they operate all in a very similar fashion. So it's kind of cool because it's an eyedropper pen, but yet it's got a little more sophistication to it, which can make it somewhat more of a practical pen. Now the thing I will say, and you can see this a little bit on my pen here, being that it's a very clear pen demonstrator and it has some eyedropperness to it, it's going to be a little more likely for the ink to come out into the cap. Oh gosh, come on, there we go. And you can see a little bit, like a little bit right there, I think. Yeah, I got a little bit of streak of ink right there. And I've definitely had some ink that comes out in the cap. That's one of the things that drives people crazy about demonstrators, is you can see the ink in places where you maybe don't want to see the ink, but it's going to get there. You know, I've got a little bit of ink right here in the grip, and it's just like, okay, that's there. I could take it apart and clean it if I really wanted to, but I just kind of live with it. So really cool pens, very well made. Honestly, the fit and finish on them is very impressive for the price that they are, and having like good, you know, really good nibs on them. It's pretty cool, and they've been very, very popular so far for that reason. We're trying to restock them, and I think they're going to be very popular, but it is kind of a startup company. They haven't been around that long, and I think maybe the interest in them is perhaps surpassing their current capacity, so they're maybe working to address that, or maybe they weren't quite ready for us to carry them. Not to say that it was just us that did it, but I think just the brand kind of catching on a little bit. You know, they're out of stock and kind of making more. So, you know, it's a brand that I hope will continue to grow and come out with more stuff. And we'll keep talking about it. So anyway, hope that covers a bit for you. All right, now I got some business questions. I'm gonna take a little sip of water first, if you don't mind. All right, one Shub H on Instagram. How do you see your management team expanding? In which directions over the next 3 years? More towards customer care, media and curation, or operations and fulfillment? Is this an internal capacity need or an external market competition need to fulfill? Okay, so I can try and talk about this a little bit. So we've expanded pretty rapidly in terms of our people over the last 5 or 7 years, which has, you know, strained us in certain ways. We had to put leadership structure in place. Used to be me and Rachel kind of running the show, and as we grew, we couldn't directly lead everyone effectively. You know, the number varies, but you know, 6 to 8 people generally is what's considered the most that any one person can effectively lead. So keeping that in mind, when you start to get to 40 or so, you need a team of managers. So we have actually 2 levels of leadership within our company. So we have you know, all of our individual teams. So all of them have at least one leader. Our fulfillment team, we have actually 2 supervisors who help because that team is larger. So that's going on, and then you know, it got to the point where we had so many people in kind of management positions that I just couldn't keep track of everything that was going on. So we had now a director of operations who oversees 2, technically 3 kind of different departments, or teams, as we like to call them. And then I'm actually in the process now of looking for a director of marketing. So the director of marketing is going to oversee the marketing efforts. We have a media team manager who oversees a lot of the day-to-day stuff, and I'm looking for somebody kind of more strategic to do that. I talked about that at the beginning of this video. So if you know anybody, send them my way. But anyway, so that director level is kind of a newer level of management that we've had really in the last 1.5 to 2 years. Once we got to kind of 35, 40 people, we found that we really could benefit from that. So yeah, if you know, let's see here, what else did I have beyond that? Okay, so you know, as far as that goes, we've got a pretty good structure in place here. Like, the boat's not going to get rocked probably too hard in that way. Part of the reason we moved our office space was because we were outgrowing physically last year, and so we moved our physical space. And just being in a more effective space has made it to be where we can work more effectively, come up with more kind of technology and space solutions than just hiring more people. And then our new website too is an effort to make people's jobs easier, and frankly just get a little more sophisticated and have some more automation and other things like that. So we have really slowed down in how many people we've needed to hire, which, you know, we love our team and we love having a lot of people around here. But at the same time, it's kind of cool to be at a place where things can stabilize a little bit when you don't have people coming and going all the time. It's easier to focus on culture and build strong teams and focus on improving communications and relations with the people who are here. So there's going to be some natural kind of attrition and stuff like that happens on like any team. But as far as expanding rapidly, we're going to be in pretty good shape with the director of marketing. You know, at some point, I'm sure we're going to need a more advanced kind of finance position. We're not necessarily at that point yet. So we're going to wait, you know, as long as we have to hire for that. But that largely is going to take care of things for a little bit, you know, and I've got some things that are kind of on my mind, but you know, obviously I know like my team watches these videos sometimes, and anything that I would talk about very speculatively could come across as like, you know, way more solid than it is necessarily. So a lot of it would be speculation and just things I'm thinking about. So I won't get too deep into that, but I can say that we're at a point of kind of stabilization, not rocking the boat too hard. But that said, you're asking like 3 to 5 years out or whatever, who knows what's going to happen. You know, I'm always leaving room to be surprised, but I'm thinking ahead pretty hard, and we're at the point where we have like sales forecasting projections, and you know, we know about how efficiently different people in different roles should be doing things, and so we can project out, you know, over time how many people we're going to need based on certain volume and things like that we're expecting to do, and that number has slowed down. So it started out, we were very efficient, and then as we grew really fast and had to hire kind of, you know, because we weren't as efficient, and now we're kind of stabilizing off a little bit, and it's getting kind of nice. So hope that answers your question. All right, Beth A on Facebook. What are your main takeaways this year from moving in reality and online? What are the similarities and differences between the two moves, and any lessons you would like to share? Yes, we have now, in the last year, less than a year, moved both our physical office and changed our website. So pretty fundamentally changed a whole heck of a lot about how we do things and where. I could spend a lot of time talking about this, so I'm really going to try hard to hit some of the high points. Both are really hard, and they both take a long time, and they're both incredibly expensive. That I can say pretty definitively. Moving the physical space was very disruptive. It required more effort, I think. It took a longer period of time to do that. It involved more people, involved certainly more people outside of our company, because we had contractors, designers, movers, moving consultant to organize it all. I mean, it was just a lot. You know, we had people from the county and permits and all this stuff. You know, that probably felt like a somewhat larger project in the process of actually going through it and preparing for it. The website it was definitely more of a burden on Rachel. Maybe not more of a burden, it's probably equally a burden. The move was a pretty big burden on her too. But you know, the website, she really headed up a lot of it, and we had some good conversations and training and stuff, and certain members of our team, you know, played more into the development of the website, but largely it was, you know, the platform was already built, and we had to tweak and tune a lot of stuff, but we hired developers from the outside. So we had a team of developers that were helping us. Rachel coordinated a lot of it, and then our team contributed to various things. And then like once we went live, now we're in the process over the you know, first 30 days or so of really working out a lot of like workflow things. So it's actually been you know, kind of more actual changing of workflow and stuff like that with the website. Once we moved into the new space, I mean, we moved to a larger space, it was like pretty easy to settle in physically to our new space. The website, it's less tangible. So there's a lot more like, you know, okay, I used to do this interface like every single day, and now it's all different. Where is it? You know, it's kind of like if you were to move into a place and you didn't, you know, you had to like cook in somebody else's kitchen. You're like, where's the spatula? You know, it used to be in this drawer, and I don't, you know, where is it now? And oh, we don't use a spatula anymore. Now it's a spoon or whatever, you know. And so it's just like figuring that out. That's kind of how more the website feels. It's a little more, okay, abstract sort of than the physical space, because the physical space is like, okay, there's a desk here. If I walk over there, there's the bathroom. You know, it's a little more nebulous on the website. Some similarities. Okay, so both require a lot of risk. They were very stressful with some timelines involved. They required a ton of communication, coordination, delegation, and project management skills. Delays are inevitable on both projects, and costs will run over on both projects. The better you manage it, the less overages and delays you'll have, but it's pretty much going to happen. Just bank on that. Some of the differences: the physical move required more physical activity, actually moving stuff, driving back and forth between the old office and the new office for a while. The website's all virtual, so it's very efficient in terms of being able to work on it. It's like we didn't have to physically drive to a different location to do anything. It's like when we had things going on at the new space. Oh, the contractor's going to be there. All right, I got to drop everything, drive over there, meet the contractor, make a decision, drive all the way back, or whatever. The website, it's virtual, so you can have literally just open up a new browser. You can be doing things over there. You can work in your old space, and you can be doing work at home, at night, whatever. It was all that. So that was a big difference there. And then we had developers and stuff. They were remote, so there was no physical like developers would have to come here and we upend our whole schedule and all that kind of stuff. It was, oh, okay, let's do a webcast, let's shoot some emails back and forth. So it just felt like it was easier to kind of work around that than it was the physical move. Some lessons from both: don't try to do both at the same time. I would advise against that because both require pretty much everything you have. We spaced them a year apart, and I'm really glad that we did because I don't know how we would have been able to do both at the same time, to be quite frankly with you. Save your money. It's going to cost a lot, and financing is not necessarily always easy for these types of expenses. If you go out to the bank and try and get a loan and say, I want to redo my website, they would be like, well, no, because there's not an asset there that is, collateral necessarily. And it's like, if you're moving a physical building, it's like, okay, you're just going to have more rent and you're committing to more debt or whatever it might be. Yeah, we're not going to let you take out a loan for that. That's not the type of thing that they really like to do. So save up your money and be ready to pay more for all the expenses that come up. Some other advice: always get at least 3 quotes on everything. It's going to take you more time, but you're going to be more confident about making the right choice. And if you chose somebody and they fall through, you have somebody else to fall back on. We had that happen a couple of times on various parts of our project. More on the moving side, but we did have that happen on the website thing too. We ended up getting some quotes on something. We only had one that was actually able even to accomplish some of our migration stuff, and then that company dropped the ball and we basically had to fire them. And now they actually stopped doing migrations as a part of their offering. It's like, great, I'm glad you learned that on us. But it had to fall back, and because of our timeline, we couldn't even shop around. We had to do it in-house. Thankfully, Rachel's a friggin' rock star, and Jeremy on our team helped out a lot with that too. But that was pretty stressful. And it looks like the battery's about to die. So I'm going to see how much further it will go. We're going to see, and then I'm going to see if it dies. Don't necessarily go with the cheapest contractor. Go with who you think is going to do the best job, because sometimes when you go with the cheapest, you pay the highest price. And then adjust your expectations on other projects. It's not going to be business as usual. Well, the battery died. Looks like I went long talking again. I think I was more or less done with the question. But I'll just kind of wrap it up here. I had to switch cameras and everything because I couldn't find the other battery. Sorry, Andy. It's like after 5 o'clock and everybody's going. But I'm staying here for Q&A. Okay, so let's see here. Adjust your expectations for other projects. That's where I left off. It's not going to be business as usual. What we did is we set up thematic goals during both the physical move and the website move to basically say, okay, as a company, these are going to be our most important things, because we know there's going to be a lot coming at us. Other things are going to bump up against this, and we got to make sure that the moves are our number one priority. So we set a thematic goal with some defining objectives to say, okay, this piece, and this piece, these have to take priority above everything else. And then of course there's always things that are business as usual. Make sure the website's working and all that kind of stuff. Make sure payroll is getting paid. There are standard things that always have to happen. But in terms of like new projects we take on, those ones had to be a priority. So that helped a lot. And then basically you're gonna have to make compromises. So be be prepared for things to go badly sometimes. You're gonna have to build in extra time into your timeline. Don't ever take things completely down to the wire because it's gonna stress you out so much. And don't strap yourself to every last penny, you know? Hold things back. Don't blow out your entire budget on these things because stuff's gonna run over, timelines are gonna get delayed, you're gonna try certain things that just aren't going to pan out, and you're gonna have to kick some butts to make things happen. And just, you know, be prepared for learning a whole lot of lessons. All right, let's finish up this week. I had 2 more questions, but I'm gonna skip one for the sake of time because I actually need to go and have dinner with my kids. So I'm gonna finish off on a personal question this week, and this is from Debbie C on Facebook. What are your top 5 things that you look for in an everyday pen? So it depends what you mean by everyday. That could mean like carry a pen in a pocket, or maybe just something you have on your desk that you write with daily, you know. I'm going to interpret it as the way that I use my everyday pens, which is I physically carry them in my pocket. Now I have a pen case that I carry around in my backpack, actually a couple of pen cases I carry around in my backpack. You could consider these to be everyday pens because I have access to them every day, but really the everyday pens that I have are the ones I keep on my person. And that is a very exclusive club because I have a lot of pens, but I only have so many pockets, even though I'm an avid fan of cargo shorts. And I know it's fashion faux pas or whatever, but they're just so darn practical, you know? I just love them. I'm definitely a practicality over, I'm a function over form. That would be more my style. But anyway, that's the way that I do it. So I have 5 things that I thought about that are most important to me when choosing an everyday pen, and I'm gonna list them for you right now. Number 1, in no particular order, has to be a reliable writer, which means I have to kind of start up pretty easily when I want it. It's there when I need it. It just kind of does the job. Durability. I'm not necessarily easy on my pocket pens, so I need something that's gonna be kind of tough. I like mow my lawn and pick weeds and shovel mulch, and like these are all things I've done within the last week with my pens in my pockets. You know, I have young kids, and so I'm crawling on the floor and I'm doing all that stuff. So I'm pretty hard on them, and I need them to be able to take it. Writing feel. I just want it to feel pleasant to me. And that can mean different things to different people, but how the writing feels when I write with it, I want it to be something that I actually enjoy writing with. So not only reliable writer, but something I find pleasing. A lot of pens that I have are very pleasing to me, so that's a very broad net, but it's one of my parameters. Easy uncapping, you know. So my everyday pens that I have a Visconti Homo Sapiens, which has the hook safe lock, and I like that because it only takes 1/5 of a rotation to uncap it. So it's very easy, it's lots of ways to catch it, I'm not spinning it a lot, it's very secure, and it's kind of fun to do. And then I also have a traveler's pen, which is a pull cap, and it kind of snaps in place. It just slides on the back. It's very easy to do, so very kind of quick draw aspect. That's personally just like what I like to carry around. I like to be more quick draw style. Mainly because my style is that I'm usually taking a lot of quick notes. I have a lot of different meetings, so I'm constantly putting away and taking out my pens. And then fidgetability. I don't know if that's a word, but I made it up, and it's one of my top 5 things. You can see, literally, as I'm explaining what fidgetability is, I'm fidgeting around with the pen case that I carry around in. So I like to play with my pens. I'm a very tactile person, and I, when I'm listening to people or I'm in meetings or I'm thinking or whatever, I just find that I absorb things a little better when my hands are fidgeting with something. So I tend to kind of cap and uncap, play with the clip. The traveler's pen, I'll often cap and uncap. I'll sometimes take pens apart, get ink on my fingers and then kind of rub it around, and I'll take it and I'll be like, oh, okay, that ink's hanging up, I'm not gonna squeeze it down. And so I'm constantly kind of fidgeting with my pens. It's one of the tactile things I like about fountain pens. So I'll do that. And yeah. Oh, the cap. So on the traveler's pen, you can actually unscrew the little lanyard top cap on this thing, and you can take off the clip. So sometimes I'll do that. I'll put this back on. I'll just screw and unscrew it. Sometimes if I'm really bored, I will take, which is not often, but then I'm actually bored, but I can take and I can actually put the clip on upside down on this pen. And then I'll show you this. Let's see if I can do it. Here we go. I'll do that. So the clip is upside down, which is completely non-functional in terms of a clip, but then what I can do is I can put it on the desk like this, and I can just kind of bounce it like that. You can't even see that, but there you go. It's stupid. But anyway, I don't do that often in meetings because it's incredibly distracting, but it was fun to discover I could do that. Yeah, these are the 2 pens that I carry around right now, and they have they check all these boxes. And you know, I'll carry around some other ones, and by no means is this going to be everybody's parameters. This is just very unique to my style, but that's what I got for you. So that's it for Q&A this week. I really ran long. I knew that I would because I had a lot of good questions. A lot of good questions from Goulet Nation. I tell you, that is, man, y'all asked some really good questions. So my initial pass when I went through this was 30 questions of ones that I could have answered this week easily. I mean, I can generally answer most anything that's asked, but like stuff I haven't answered or was interesting to me to answer was 30 questions, and that was just too many out of the maybe 70 or 80 that we got total. So, question of the week for this week for you all is, what pen and ink is the last one that you wrote with? As of right now, literally as you're hearing this, what was the last pen and ink that you wrote with? Put that in the comments. I don't care what your favorite or any of that stuff, the last one that you wrote with. If it's a ballpoint, if it's a rollerball, put that. I want you to be honest. Put it in the comments. And then your writing prompt for this week is to transcribe the lyrics to your favorite song. So you got to make a choice about what is your favorite song of all time and then transcribe the lyrics. That is your writing assignment, should you choose to do it, trying to incentivize you to use your pens more with these little ideas in Q&A. So hope you enjoyed this week's. Be sure to check out a lot of stuff we talked about on gouletpens.com. If you know any directors of marketing out there who are looking to be a Goulet, send them on over to the Join Our Team page on Goulet Pens. Hope you have a great weekend, a fantastic rest of your week. Thanks so much for watching, and right on.